What's going on, hockey friends? We are back and here we are. Another trade deadline has come and gone and we saw a lot of interesting deals. Some good, some bad, and some that just left me scratching my head. So in this video I'll be taking a look at the trades that we saw on deadline day and the weeks leading up to it, because there were some interesting deals that happened during the week and I want to have my say on those as well. So I'll be talking about some of the teams I think did well, and at the end we'll just have a mashup of some other deals I think were noteworthy. And as always, there will be chapters in the description if you want to skip to any particular team or any particular part of the video. So let's get right into it. Now, Florida. This is a team that hasn't got a lot of love on the channel, but that changes today because, yeah, you got exactly what you needed and you got the biggest piece that was available in Claude Giroux. And you know what? I really like the deal. Claude Giroux is still very good, and I'm happy he got to play his 1000 game with the Flyers and get the send-off he deserved. But now it's time to go chase that cup down in Florida. And with what the Panthers gave up, there's no way they lose this trade. I'm not crazy about Owen Tippett, to be honest. He's solid, but I don't know if he's going to live up to that 10th overall pick that he was in 2017. And a first round pick next year that's top 10 protected is not a massive loss, because I think Florida will be good next year as well. So Florida add that second line center or first line winger. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to play, but he's a really good player, and adding him not just to the lineup but also on the power play where he can dish out those passes, yeah, it's really good. They also added Ben Chiarot, which it's fine. He's a physical defenseman that I think will fit in pretty well in Florida. He can fill in while Ekblad's out with his injury. Obviously he can't do what Ekblad does, but he's supposed to be back for the playoffs, so then Chiarot will take a smaller role and Florida's D-core looks stronger than it did before. It's a pretty steep price, but that's the market we live in, and when you're a team that wants to contend, this is what you have to do. And the Panthers are loading up for a deep playoff run, and after this trade deadline, I wouldn't bet against them. However, Montreal will not be competing for the cup this year, and they understood the assignment and cashed in on the trade baits that they had. Last month they shipped Tyler Toffoli for a good haul and got themselves a first round pick in this year's draft, which will be in Montreal, and hopefully I'm going to be there. And now, just like I talked about, they shipped Ben Chiarot and got that 2023 first round pick, and they got a nice prospect in Thijs Melanik, who was the third round pick in 2020. And then they weren't done. They traded away Arthur Lehkonen to Colorado for a second round pick in 2024 and the defensive prospect Justin Barron, who was a first round pick in 2020, and he fills a hole in the Montreal prospect pool. They needed a right-handed defenseman there, and he's been pretty good in the AHL, and he projects to be a solid NHL defenseman. And then they said goodbye to Brett Kulak, added another 2 draft picks, one being a second round pick in this year's draft, and this is why I have the Habs as the winners at the deadline. It's simply because they're clearing out. Get the players in their high 20s out, get prospects, get picks, and just get ready for the future. Montreal added 7 draft picks and 3 prospects if you include the Tyler Toffoli deal, and I like that. It's a good start for their new GM Kent Hughes, and I think we can declare Montreal as the winners of this deadline. So in my video I made on the Wild back in January, I talked about how I wasn't sold on their goaltending, and now they've gone and added Marc Andre Fleury, which for me solves their goaltending, at least for this season. They want to go deep in the playoffs, and even though he's had his moments in the playoffs before, we all know that, but he's still a better option than what Minnesota had before the deadline, and I'm rooting for Fleury, and I always have, and I don't think Minnesota overpaid. A second round pick is worth it, and if they make the conference finals, it turns into a first round pick, but then that would be a very late first round pick, so it doesn't really make any big difference. And either way, they traded away the rights for Jack McBain for a second round pick, so it kind of cancels itself out anyway. McBain was not going to sign with Minnesota, so might as well just trade him. I also like the addition of Jacob Middleton. He's a solid defensive defenseman, and I really don't have any complaints. Sure, you lose Kaapo Kähkönen, but you added Fleury, and overall you get stronger as a team, especially when you add Tyson Jost and Nick Deslauriers to the equation, who the Wild acquired in the days leading up to the deadline. yeah, all I can say is this is a good job by Bill Guerin. Well done. Now, Seattle haven't done a lot of things right this season, at least on the ice, and I'll hold my hands up, I was wrong. I thought they were gonna be much better, but anyways, they had a good deadline, including the days leading up to it. They added a cool 10 draft picks, including 4 second-round picks, with 3 of them being in this year's draft, and they're basically going about business the way I do in franchise mode when I'm rebuilding. Trade away middle 6 guys for draft picks and just stockpile, and I like the return they got from Mark Giordano. I would have preferred a first round pick, but I'm not sure he's worth that at this point. But then you can also argue Ben Sherrod wasn't worth a first round pick, which is fair enough. But yeah, Seattle had a good deadline, and I'm pretty intrigued to see what they do at the draft this year and moving forward, because they're going to get themselves a good player at the draft, and then we'll see what happens. You can use those draft picks for trades, you can use them for whatever. I like what Seattle did here. So, the Ducks are in rebuild mode after trading away Josh Manson, Hampus Lindholm and Rakell, and in the process acquiring 7 draft picks, 1 first rounder in this year's draft in the Lindholm deal, which is a deal that makes sense for both teams. Lindholm has stagnated in Anaheim and he was going to be a UFA anyway, so good job cashing in on him. It's the same with Rakell, and I'll talk about what that trade means for the Penguins later in the video, because I think both teams got a good deal here. But I like the fact that they acquired a really good goalie prospect in Kalle Klang from the Penguins, along with a second round pick and 2 decent bottom 6 players. And then getting a second round pick and a third rounder for Josh Manson and Nick Delorier is also good business. Just like Montreal and Seattle, Anaheim is stockpiling draft picks. And of course, they're not going to get a steal with every pick at the draft, but you can use those picks for future trades, or with good scouting and a bit of luck, you can get yourself a good player. So those were the teams I thought stood out with the deals they made during the deadline, but there were still some other moves I really liked, and I'm going to talk about them now. And the first deal I'm a fan of is, just like I mentioned, Rakell to the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is exactly what the Penguins needed. Rakell is a scorer and he's going to play with either Crosby or Malkin, most likely Malkin, and I think he's going to have a really good time in Pittsburgh. Kasper Kapanen has been a disappointment for me this season, and with Rakell being a 2-time 30-goal scorer, put him on a line with Malkin and boom, that's good. And then you can bump either Evan Rodriguez or Kapanen down to the third line, and the Penguins look really scary going forward. I think this is a good deal for both teams. Like I said earlier, I like the fact that Anaheim got Kalle Klang in return. He's a solid goalie prospect and he's someone to watch in the future. I also really like the Andrew Copp deal for the Rangers. They're adding a really solid forward to that forward group, and I think he's going to be very useful for them. They're going into the playoffs with high hopes, and they need to add players that can bring that, get ready for it, the secondary scoring. I know guys, Mr. Comedian over here, but yeah, no, it's a good deal. I don't really think it's an overpayment. It's a rental, and that's just how the market works. And if you want to win, that's just simply the price you have to pay. And lastly, I gotta give props to the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Brandon Hagel trade. Here's a guy who's a 20+ goal scorer, he's shooting at a ludicrous 22%, which is not sustainable. But he's the perfect fit for that third line in Tampa. He's got a great contract and will probably make the jump to that second line next season, because I don't see Palat being re-signed. And then you have Hagel for another 2 years at 1.5 million, which is great. He's not going to shoot at 22% again, but he's got energy, he's got a motor, he's got the dog in him, and he's just a good player. It might be a bit of an overpay, but for Tampa, they're in a win now mode. They're going for the three-peat, and I think Hagel is a great fit for that. And that's it guys. A lot more moves happened, but to be honest, I don't think they were super exciting. You're not going to catch me talking about Nathan Beaulieu for a conditional 7th round pick. So let me know in the comments if there are any other moves you really liked, and I will see you in the next one.